I had to redefine my purpose. When you're responding in a fire engine to emergencies, your purpose is pretty clear, right? The change was significant enough for me that it really became a mental health crisis for me to have to transition into a role where I wasn't on the line doing the things with the people that I love the most. Firefighters and other first responders, when they make that brave decision to say, hey, I need help, it can sometimes be a very private and a very difficult decision to make. But I don't operate in a vacuum or on an island. And my command staff and my officers and my firefighters know that checking on each other is a standing order.
Welcome to Responder Resilience, along with my co-host Bonnie Rumley, LCSW, EMT, and David Dashinger. Today we're speaking with Fire Chief Nick Marsan of the Westport, Connecticut Fire Department, and we're going to dive into the world of leadership and mental health, exploring the terrain of how to truly embrace mental wellness as a core operational value. What tangible daily actions must command staff take? And we'll dig into the secret sauce of camaraderie in a department, the art of listening and empowering others. Just how critical is that?
There's a new app built by firefighters for firefighters, and it's called Crackle. Download the app now for free as a Legacy member and get early access to exclusive content, tools, and updates as they drop. Get the free app at crackle.respondertv.com.
We invite you to like and subscribe: YouTube Responder Resilience, Facebook Responder TV, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and our website is respondertv.com for past episodes and guest information. We'll be right back to speak with Chief Marsan after this.
Ask a first responder who they are, and you're likely to hear,
I am a police officer.
I am a firefighter.
I am a paramedic.
I am a 911 communications operator.
not I do this work, but I am this job. Ask a clinician why they work with first responders, and they may say,
There's no higher calling than helping the helpers.
join us in shaping a culture where mental health, wellness, and leadership are prioritized, not whispered about, where support is a sign of strength, not failure, and where no one has to carry the weight alone. Welcome to Responder Resilience. We shine a spotlight on the unseen battles of first responder reality and celebrate the powerful wins that come from the grit of post-traumatic growth. We understand the culture, honor the trust, and bring you conversations from the change makers, passionate about helping first responders come home whole.
With your hosts, retired Lieutenant David Dashinger, Dr. Stacy Raymond, and Bonnie Rumley, LCSW EMT.
We want to welcome Fire Chief Nick Marsan. He's a public safety professional and veteran, serving the Westport Fire Department since 2007. He's a state certified fire marshal and EMT, and nationally certified as a Fire Service Instructor 3 and Fire Officer 3. His career includes assignments as lieutenant and fire inspector, and 10 years as the union president of the Westport Uniformed Firefighters Local 1081. Marsan holds 2 master's degrees in history and public administration, emergency management. He's a veteran of the U.S. Army and the National Guard, and he deployed in support of Operation Enduring Freedom in 2010. Chief, welcome to Responder Resilience.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Chief, we've been blessed, David and I both, to know you in the first responder world locally here in Fairfield County. And now we feel really, really fortunate to have you on the show to be able to talk about leadership and psychology and all the things that we want to tackle with you. So thank you for your service in the military. Thank you for being our brother, not only in the first responder world, but in this work too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I'm always eager. I want to jump back in. So it looks like you got hired back in 2007. Is that right?
Yes, I joined the fire service in 2007.
Great. And from our understanding, you rose to the ranks pretty quickly. So walk us through that. Walk us through the beginning of your career and then jumping up into that leadership role.
Absolutely. When I joined in 2007, I found the fire service, or the fire service found me, and I was kind of a rudderless ship for a little while when I got out of the military, because there was something about it that I was missing, and at the time I probably couldn't articulate what it was, but it's certainly the family environment of the fire service, that the camaraderie, putting others before self is really what found me, and I found it. So I started in 2007, and I think probably my most important and the most informal leadership role was being elected union president very, very early on in my career. I started as a treasurer, and then I was actually nominated by the outgoing president to take over. And that gave me great opportunities to really be a voice for my brother and sister firefighters, and able to say things that they probably couldn't say, and to get to people that they couldn't get to talk about the things that the resources they would need to be able to do their job well and safely. So I did that for 10 years, as you mentioned. In the 7th year of that, I actually got promoted to lieutenant. First I was in the fire marshal's office, and then realized that coming to work Monday through Friday wasn't the most fun. So I went back on the line, and I got promoted to lieutenant. And lieutenants was a role I really loved. David, you know what I'm talking about, right? You're there. You're a working boss. You're
the best job in the department.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then I very unexpectedly and very rapidly was offered the position of deputy chief of the department, number 2 spot. And I did what was best for myself and my family, and I took that position. But I wasn't something I was prepared for or working towards at that moment. And so there was definitely some challenges that I had to work through with that, and we could talk about that in a minute. Yeah. But after that, there was another rapid and unexpected change within the department, and I found myself now as fire chief. So here I am, back to working Monday through Friday, as well as nights and weekends. So I'm doing a little bit of both, but it's, as I mentioned, it was a tough transition for me, because the same thing that made the fire service attractive, the ability to put others before self and do things that not everybody would be willing to do to help people in their times of need. That was what got me up every day, right? And it also was something that kept me one step ahead of some of the things that I was dealing with, right? That almost full bucket. From the military, from my childhood, from what I've seen and done in the fire service, being on the line, I think sometimes gives you an opportunity to be one step ahead of some of those things. But they're there; they don't go away, right? They're there, and they linger. And that one drop that you don't know is going to tip that bucket over is really the thing. When I came, the change was significant enough for me that it really became a mental health crisis for me. To have to transition into a role where, I wasn't on the line doing the things with the people that I love the most. And it was a tough transition, but I've got to a point where I am still helping people. I'm just doing it kind of vicariously through the people that I work with and work for, and make sure that, I'm really their advocate to fight for what they need to do their job successfully.
You're trained to help people heal. But first responders, they carry trauma that's buried under silence, stigma, and stress. Helping the helpers gives you the framework to connect, to speak their language, earn their trust, and actually make an impact. From the experienced team and clinicians behind the Responder Resilience podcast, this isn't theory. It's real-world support for the ones who need you most. And this book isn't just for clinicians. If you're an agency leader, peer support team, chaplain, EAP, wellness program coordinator, or family member, Helping the Helpers will equip you with the tools, language, and insight to make a difference. Be the resource they can count on. Order your copy of Helping the Helpers on Amazon today.
Yeah, Chief, there's a lot to unpack in what you just talked about, and I think it's so important because there can be this huge disconnect or maybe misunderstanding of what it's like to be up in that, ivory tower as the white shirt now, for the people who are still boots on the ground and understanding what you may have gone through, making that transition. As we were saying earlier, before we started recording, it's almost like a retirement of sorts, right? There's a loss of that tribe and mission that we have when we're running the calls and doing the 24-hour shifts. So for you, what was that like? How did you find your path once you're up in that office now, not running out on every 911 call? What was that like for you?
Well, I had to redefine my purpose. When you're responding in a fire engine to emergencies, your purpose is pretty clear, right? So I had to really reflect and define what purpose was for me now, and how do I make sure that it's profound enough to satisfy my need to serve. As I mentioned, it was like a rapid and unexpected retirement in a lot of ways, and a lot of the things that I was staying one step ahead of really kind of came to the surface during that time. And it was I'll shout out to the Fairfield County Trauma Response Team that it was really, the people I worked with there that helped me kind of flatten the curve of that transition. And as I had mentioned to you, David, before, and I think that it's worth mentioning, this kind of segue into like why I think leadership has such an awesome opportunity to like really take care of their people when it comes to mental health, is when I first used to go to my therapist, I'd ask for really early morning hours, and I would park up the street and text her first. Is it all clear? And it wasn't because I was ashamed or embarrassed of seeking mental health, therapy. It was more that I didn't want, and I was very cognizant of the fact that, firefighters and other first responders, when they make that brave decision to say, hey, I need help, it could sometimes be a very private and a very difficult decision to make. And the last thing I would want a brother or sister firefighter to see is a white shirt walking through the door of their therapist's office, because that's their place to go to unpack some of this stuff. That's their place to really do the work, right? So that was my thing, and I was okay with that, right? In my mind, I say, all right, I'm not embarrassed. I'm okay to be here. I would never deny that I go, but I really want to, make sure that there's boundaries for the people that would be uncomfortable with that. Probably about 6 months into my therapy and working with the EMDR and unpacking stuff from long before I was in the fire service, unpacking stuff that I did and had to do in the military, and unpacking the stuff that I was helpless to change the outcome in the fire service. One day I was walking out of my therapist's office, and there was a young firefighter in the lobby. And, I would always take my shirt off and go in my T-shirt, so I could at least have some type of, not that, I mean, you see this big noggin around, you know who I am. It's not like I could hide that well, and I was getting ready to walk by this young guy, and I stopped, and I looked at him and said, hey, brother, it's really good that you're here. And as I walked out of the office that day, it hit me that part of my purpose is to really prioritize my people's mental health as much as I prioritize the equipment that they drive around in, and the equipment they put on their bodies to protect themselves. So that was a really, really eye-opening and wonderful moment that my purpose could be chiseled away just a little bit more and a little bit more specifically. So, yeah. So here we are.
Thanks for sharing that. I think that is so important and impactful for people here, especially administration who are wondering, why should I buy into mental health for my people? Like, how do I do that? How do I navigate being the leader in advocating for mental health? And you have modeled that in an incredible way for anybody that's under your leadership. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, I've had the pleasure of getting to know you through the team that you were speaking of, the Fairfield County Trauma Response Team. And from the day I first met you, I could see that you were living the example that we want to set forth for all of our brothers and sisters. And that's obviously our goal with every first responder we see and that we help. But when we see chiefs, leaders getting comfortable with doing what you just did here, which is ultimately sharing your story and showing vulnerability, you give so many people permission to do that. And we can't even measure how many people. It's not the one guy in the office that day. It's every single person that listens to this podcast. And you can't measure that ripple. And I think that's what we all love about our work, is that when we see someone like you all in to do all the right things, doesn't mean that we're perfect, but you're always putting them first. And that's what David and I want to see more of leadership. We want to see that. Yes, we want leaders to take care of themselves, like you're also illustrating, because in order to take care of everyone else, you have to be able to take care of yourself too. And it sounds like that was part of your lesson, that you had to bump up against that within yourself.
100%. And how could I grant permission, so to speak, for people to be comfortable with reaching out for to work on their mental health and their healing, if I'm not willing to show that I prioritize it as well? And it's just not, you can't just fake the funk, right? If, I want my vulnerability to be a source of strength for my people, that's, I could set an example. There's no policy I could ever write that's going to change the culture that we're evolving from in the first responder world. But behavior could change culture, attitude could change culture. So I want to model my own vulnerability, because if I don't, how could I expect that young man in the office to be able to show it? So
yeah,
Definitely.
She fulfilled a promise that was made to her husband and donated his organs so others could live. 5 lives were saved in the process.
He always did what was better for other people instead of himself. I would definitely consider my dad a hero.
Getting the word out there, still saving lives.
Actually, their help helped my parents to be able to get me a car so I could definitely get to dialysis.
I heard about you and I'm going to help you. They saved my life.
Be a forever hero, donate life.
Let's circle back to that whole transition piece about, now finding yourself in that chief's office after serving on the line for, quite a long time. How do you kind of recalibrate and channel that helping, the helping desire and urge and, motivation that we have to help people on those 24-hour shifts on all the 911 calls, and now being in the administrative role, but also now you are, as you've alluded to, serving the people within your agency, but also the community that the fire department serves. What did that look like for you?
It's funny. I was just thinking of a moment where, we used to joke because, gallows humor, right? And even in the military, this was a joke from the military, but we're like, wow, maybe a good portion of PTSD is just realizing you'll never be this cool again, as we're all in our battle rattle and everything else. And I think that, that transition kind of, it was that same kind of thing, like, oh my God, like there's that sense of purpose, that sense of belonging. What I kind of do to really kind of, really kind of push forward with the narrative and the story that, hey, it's okay to seek help. It's okay to say you're feeling vulnerable, or the bravest thing that we can do sometimes in this brave world we live in is to ask for help. I remember reading a book on leadership from Abraham Lincoln, and one of his components was leadership by wandering around, right? Like really, like get out of this tower and get downstairs and have a cup of coffee and ask how people are doing and look them in the eye when you ask them. Get to know their family, ask about their family. How are they doing? Whenever I have the opportunity to discuss that it's okay to not be okay, and that there's things we could do to help address that, whenever I get the opportunity to discuss it, I do. Whether it's an email to the department because it's Christmas time and I want to let them know I'm thinking about them. When it's, if I show up with cookies on Christmas morning, it's, another opportunity. I look at the call list from the night before, and, you do it long enough, you know which calls, you know, that it might be worth a phone call. Hey, how you guys doing? Another way I do it, and I'm really, really proud of this, is our peer support team here at the Westport Fire Department. First of all, the people who are actively involved in that are some of my heroes. And wow, what a great opportunity. All of a sudden I have the pen. I get the like magic control of the budget, which is, whoa. I don't know if they want to do that because I haven't balanced my checkbook in 25 years. But you know, when the peer support team came up to me as we were developing, like, hey, what's our policies? What could we do to like help this team grow and make it attractive for people to either join or to, you know, ask for help through? Well, you know what? I have a dive rescue team. I have a technical rescue team. I have, you know, confined space technicians. My peer support team is a specialized team. And if they get deployed, whether it's in-house or with others in the first responder community, I treat it as a deployment of my special team. And I make sure that they're protected, you know, workers' comp wise. I make sure they're compensated, and that's I'll hire back for them if they get called to that. Like I don't differentiate, you know, other than the fact that, you know, it's just another type of injury that's being addressed, and you know, the rescue efforts are beginning. It's just it's an invisible injury, but it's an injury, and it needs to, you know, the people that are willing to put in the work to learn how to help those people, you know, find the right support networks and resources. Absolutely. So I love that I'm able to do that. I'm, you know, again, that's the one of the perks of being in this position. I can make those calls, and I stand by that call, and I talk about that whenever I can, when I'm in circles with other people with control of the checkbook, and hopefully that's a positive influence on them as well.
You've said a couple things that I want to highlight. And for our listeners, I think it's important for them to understand the possibilities of leadership. If a leader is up to the task, a chief is up to the task of doing two things that you've said. One of them is checking the people before you check the gear. Okay. There's a habit we have, you know, no one wants to go on that call when the tones drop and we're missing a piece of equipment. Nobody. But if my head isn't in the right place, I'm not going to use anything in that medical bag properly. And just like your guys aren't going to use any piece of their fire apparatus properly if their head is not in the right space. So what you're saying about checking on each other before we check equipment, it's really important. And it's really good that you're highlighting that. And the second thing is treating those peer support, treating the people that are going to respond to the mental health. That is a fire, so to speak. It's a different kind of fire. And I love this idea that you're sending out a specialized team to focus on that too. And I'm blessed to know some of those peer support team members. They work closely with our team to get people help. And I can't say enough. All the things you're saying are absolutely true and right. And these examples, I hope that listeners can listen to and say, you know what, one day, even those people that have little thoughts of promoting one day, I'm going to remember what that chief said, and I'm going to do that. And I think our fire service, our EMS world, our police world, all of our branches will look better one day if everyone heeds that advice.
I hope that that's the direction that we're going in. I was talking to David earlier that I stole a little mantra that I learned in the military, mission first, people always. And people have asked me for years, like, what does that actually mean? Right. And to your point, Bonnie, like, it means that, you know, we come here because we're here to respond to people's worst days, right? And to help them through that. Sometimes we do that. Sometimes the outcome's outside of our control, but that's our mission, right? We're here to put out fires, all types. Right. We're here to help people in their time of need. The people always part is, I need my people to be as you mentioned, where they need to be able to accomplish their mission.
Right.
So if I can't be on the engine actually responding to the calls, I can make sure that my people have what they need so they could be on that engine responding to those calls in a way that's going to help the person that they're responding to, and in a way that's going to help them get back home to their loved ones all in one piece, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically.
As firefighters and first responders, we're brilliant at the basics. We master the art of stretching the line, and we excel at being there for those who need us most. Yet even the best of us can be caught off guard. We sometimes face unexpected challenges like injury, cancer, or post-traumatic stress symptoms. But you're not alone. The First Responder Center for Excellence is here to equip you with the tools and resources you need to stay informed and prepared. We help you focus on staying strong, safe, fit, and resilient. Optimize your performance with cutting-edge health, wellness, and science information, from fitness to nutrition, medical evaluations to behavioral health, cancer awareness to cardiac health. We've got you covered. Remember, we're stronger together. Discover more at firstrespondercenter.org and connect with us on X, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. The First Responder Center for Excellence. Equip yourself with excellence for every call.
Let's talk a little bit about the practical realities of this, because as we know, just to deliver the services that our communities need, we need to be fully trained in so many different areas, whether it's fire, EMS, both, rescue, as you mentioned, some of the specialties, confined space. It could be any number of things, which takes a huge chunk of time in our time at work when we're not running calls. And it costs money, right, to equip the apparatus and to train everybody and do what we need to do to be fully operationally ready. So how do you accomplish the mission of adding mental health into that piece, into the budget and the time, the time that we have to train? How do you work that piece out?
I firmly believe, David, that to not make that part of your day is irresponsible. I think that it's got to be a priority, because those other things are not going to get touched on, and with a full and clear head. Be able to retain, to be able to do all those things, to be specialized in our field. I think that it's at a point where if you don't have some type of focus and prioritization of our firefighters' mental health, then we're not acting as responsibly as possible. And that's it. It would be counterproductive for our mission if we weren't able to make sure that they have all the tools they need to succeed on the fire ground and within themselves. Mm-hmm. So it costs a lot more to not have those things. And we talked about that too, right? What's it, if someone down the street, the elected officials want to know what something's going to cost, what's it going to cost to make sure that your people are given the tools they need to be emotionally and mentally resilient. Mm-hmm. Well, then my question to them is, what do you think it's going to cost if we don't?
Yeah.
I think it's a good question to put back. And you're one of those people that pays attention to statistics and trends, I think, in your field. And you see the suicide rates that we're facing among first responders. I think for the first time recently, we're seeing that number starting to turn around, thankfully. What do you think about that? What can you say to some of the people listening about those stats and what that means to us on the day-to-day basis?
Well, I think that any type of traumatic experience has a really heavy effect on us. And if it's one of our brothers and sisters how somehow we didn't see the signs, right? What are we gonna do first, Bonnie, is we're gonna reflect on all the ways that we failed our brother or sister. And that has a and not in a good way, kind of a negative ripple effect where, when we start to question ourselves on outcomes and we're the toughest people on ourselves. There's no politician out there that's going to be tougher on a firefighter and what they bring to the table than that firefighter is going to be to themselves. And if one of our brothers or sisters figured out a way to complete something so tragic in our midst, it's going to be something that's going to be very difficult to heal. It's going to be a schism that's going to be hard to get across. So, again, I mean, it's a very real thing, right? We could talk about numbers, and sometimes there's people I have to deal with in my part of the job that they want to hear the numbers, right? They want to know the facts, and there's nothing that we're saying here that's so anecdotal that I could not make it concrete with the facts. And the costs, the mental and emotional costs of not staying ahead of these things is much more detrimental than any type of capital or operating cost that we need to make sure that it happens correctly.
Piece that I'm always interested in is how do you communicate with and empower your company officers to kind of work with the people that are under their command and supervision in a way that they've got a pulse, they're able to recognize maybe when someone's struggling, and then how do you give them the resources to act when they have that situation?
Well, I, as the chief, am ultimately responsible, right? But I don't operate in a vacuum or on an island. And my command staff and my officers and my firefighters know that checking on each other is a standing order, right? That mission first, people always, that's, whether they like it or not, that's our driving mantra. That's our driving thing. And that's something that has to happen in my absence, right? It has to happen as a cultural kind of movement. It kind of has to move on its own. And I think that, when I meet with my leadership teams, how are your people? How are we taking care of our people? How are they doing? That they know, culturally, they know the questions are coming. So they're better served to be ahead of it with the answers. And just by doing that, and just by wanting to know, right? You can't see my office, but I try to make it as comfortable as possible. First of all, I spend way too much time in it. But second of all, I want my leadership team to come in here, and my firefighters if they need to, and sit down and be able to talk, talk real talk about, this is what, I'm struggling with as a leader, or this is what I think my people are struggling with this. This is a tough call they went on. This is a family member that they lost. Anything that could give us opportunities to pay them maybe just a little bit more attention, or to make sure that we're kind of wrapping our arms around our people. That's the standing order. And that's where that, people always, right? So I want to see that, and I expect it. As a chief, I think I do a fairly good job of making sure my expectations are very well articulated and very well understood. And the first one's always about our people.
A great mantra. It's just amazing. And I think everyone should follow it. Obviously, David and I are biased. We're pushing this message every day, but we have more people pushing that message and buying into it the way you are. It really will make the future better for all those people learning now. You had mentioned before about the book Tribe by Sebastian Unger. For those listeners and viewers who haven't read it, I've read it. It's a phenomenal book. That idea that we all need to belong to a tribe. Can you share why that book and why that concept really touches you as an individual, and then how you apply it at work?
Absolutely. It's funny how things all kind of happen in a way. You can look back at it one day and go, wow, the universe really kind of brought all these things together, right? I knew Sebastian Unger from a book he wrote about his time as an embedded journalist in Afghanistan. Movie Restrepo's based on it. So I was familiar with him, and it just turned out that very shortly after I became a department administrator, he was on a book tour for Tribe, and he was talking about it in Hartford. And I went, and just because when I'm not doing all this firefighting stuff, I also write. So to go to hear an author talk is great. But the message of the book is that this sense of belonging, this sense of tribe, the sense that, you know, a lot of these challenges we face, these mental health challenges, these injuries that we try to heal, are almost magnified by when you're outside of your tribe, right? Mm-hmm. And I think to that point, like maybe that had a lot to do with my crisis, my existential crisis, moving away from my tribe. So the timing of the book was spot on, right? The universe. But, you know, that message that, you know, these things that we try to heal from, without the people around us is really, really difficult. And you know, he talks about people being more bonded and more, you know, able to kind of work in a way that is, you know, is during times of crisis, right? And it's when you're not in that moment and you got a lot of time on your own, it's where these things really start to kind of, you know, pop up, and you don't have that sense of purpose and belonging that you have inside of a group. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, in our line of work, that's such an important part of it. And I hope that my hope is that, you know, our brothers and sisters in the police and the EMS world, you know, are you know, take that into account. I know sometimes they might have a little bit more isolation from others than we do in the firehouse. And I tell them all the time, our door is always open and the coffee's always on, and we have the cleanest bathrooms in town. So stop by. You know, but I think that idea that there's nothing out there that we need to kind of face on our own. And, you know, the more that we realize that the bravest thing we could do is ask for help, and we could participate in discussions that are normalized. That, you know, this idea of mental health is normalized, and it becomes part of our tactical athlete mindset, right? We talk about making sure we're physically ready, but what about, you know, what are we doing to make sure that our brain is ready, our mental conditioning is ready, right? Because if we have that faulty equipment, it's gonna kind of bleed over into other things we do. And, you know, the idea of our, you know, maintaining our equipment. Well, then how are we maintaining ourselves? Is it through, you know, what's the story that we want told inside this firehouse that's going to be able to stay with someone when they're not here, to know that they're never alone and that it's okay to not be okay. And we are here for our people and for each other.
Well, Chief, we have covered a lot in this last 30 minutes or so. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you'd like to dive into?
Well, I think, yes. I think one of the things that I want to mention, and I think I'm spoiled with the Fairfield County Trauma Response Team, and I'm spoiled with this great peer support team, you know, right here inside these four walls. But, you know, Westport's not on an island, right? We're not a siloed kind of venture here. Trauma doesn't know town boundaries. You know, it's important that us chiefs realize that, you know, this is not something that has to be addressed alone, right? I think that there's a certain unity and strength and some type of community-based, you know, resilience that goes beyond just the municipalities we work for, right? There's plenty of other places where we could bring all those resources together, and it just helps everybody. So I want to say that. And then I also encourage, I mentioned before that I write. Mm-hmm. I want to encourage my brothers and sisters out there to don't be afraid to find some creative outlet for processing their grief or their trauma. There's so many ways to like get that out, and you don't even realize you're doing it. And it's once it's out there, again, it becomes something that, you know, you could look at and reflect on and realize that, hey, you know, this is a good time for me to get some help. And, you know, I think that's therapeutic, and I always encourage people to tap into their creative selves, as an outlet for some of the things that, we try to be so stoic about, sometimes stubbornly so. And then there's that one drop that makes it all pour out. So.
Great. Yeah, great strategies and wisdom.
I love what you said about trauma knows no town lines. Where we are, for our listeners and viewers, where we all work in Fairfield County, Connecticut, it is very siloed. We are very much, town-based, and every town's a little bit different in what the first responder landscape is. And I really love you spotlighting that, because if one chief could help another chief with resources, why wouldn't we do that? Mm-hmm. When we're having chief meetings or town to town, we have regional meetings, we have state level meetings. These conversations need to be had at that level, because what you're doing can be replicated, and we could all help each other just make it easier. No one, like you said, that's a tribe too, and no one has to try to figure that out alone. So I love knowing that you're a resource there also for chiefs who may want to reach out and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this. What do I do? And I think it's just another way that you are evolved in your thinking. And I really appreciate it. I almost said mic drop before when you finished. Because what you said, it was like, here it is. Here's the truth. Here's how it should be. End of story. And honestly, that's why my hat is off to you. And I'm so inspired whenever I speak to you. So thanks for that.
Thank you, Bonnie. And if you have to, production edit, want to put a little mic drop in there, there you go.
Let's get on it, David.
we got it. Chief, this is, I can't express how amazing it is to have this conversation with you, partially because, sometimes we do this job under suboptimal conditions, and some of the times that's our leadership. And when we talk to someone like you who is changing the game, who's completely open to doing it different than we've traditionally done it before. I can't tell you how inspiring that is and how impactful that's going to be to people who listen to this. It's so exciting. We're kind of entering a new era with this type of thing where the chiefs who are now coming up are pro mental health, willing to share their own personal journey in a way that's going to help other people feel more comfortable seeking help themselves. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about it. It's important. So thank you.
Thanks for your friendship, and thanks for your leadership.
Same. Thank you for what you guys are doing. And I have my book at home. My mom gifted me a copy of your book, so I look forward to diving into that. Okay.
Well, I was thinking of something we put in that book when you were speaking, and I wanted to make sure it was in there. And that is anecdotally a fire chief who, I think maybe it was a police chief, who told us on the podcast that they put their therapy appointment on the calendar where everybody could see it. And I thought we have to have that in the book, because that really embodies what leaders need to do in order to normalize mental health conversations. So Chief, you're rocking it. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. This has been great, guys. Thank you.
Remember, like and subscribe. YouTube, Responder Resilience, Facebook, Responder TV, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Go to our website, respondertv.com, for past episodes and guest information. Till the next time, stay safe, be kind to yourself. Take care.